Thanks to Tyler Shough's stellar rookie season, the New Orleans Saints could have the next second-year quarterback superstar.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, the Saints' most bitter rivals, the Atlanta Falcons, have their next head coach. We'll break down what the hire of Kevin Stefanski means for New Orleans. But first, we're going to take a look at two quarterbacks that have proven that it's not just second-year slumps, but second-year jumps for these QBs in the NFL. We'll take a look at Drake Maye first, Bo Nix second, and how Tyler Shough could follow in their paths. We got all that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode. We appreciate you, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thanks for helping us get here as we bring you your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, who are in playoff mode right now, making sure you have ample ways to get in on the action. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started today, or check out the FanDuel app. The New Orleans Saints are going to be entering the second year with quarterback Tyler Shough, who had a stellar first season with New Orleans, breaking and in some cases shattering rookie records here in New Orleans as well. And a lot of the success that he had his rookie season is, of course, propelling a lot of the hope, excitement, and positivity that everyone feels looking ahead for New Orleans. But it doesn't stop at just Tyler Shough. If you look at the second-year quarterbacks around the NFL, we're starting to see that the second year of passers, that there are guys that kind of step up and really take that next leap. We talk about sophomore slumps all the time, but we're starting to see more and more sophomore jumps for especially second-year quarterbacks. And so I want to take a look at Drake Maye here as we start the show, as well as Bo Nix, and take a look at each of their paths from their first year to their second year, how the stats compared, and then apply some of that thinking and logic to where Tyler Shough could go from his first year to his second year. Because if Tyler Shough follows in the path of either one of these QBs, that's going to be really good news for him and therefore also for the New Orleans Saints. Of course, both of these quarterbacks' teams will be facing one another in the AFC Championship game, with Drake Maye and the New England Patriots, as well as Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos having advanced. However, Bo Nix also dealing with a foot injury, so he will be out for that game. Crazy situation there that we learned immediately after the game. And so what Denver does at quarterback, you can learn more about that over with our guys over at Locked On Broncos with Cody Rourke. But I want to start off, and Sarah Benninger, but I want to start off looking at Drake Maye in this equation, because both of these players have certain paths that you could see Tyler Shough continuing to kind of push through. The interesting thing is that if you look at Tyler Shough's first year, his rookie season, as well as Drake Maye's first year, his rookie season, you can see a lot of similarities in terms of those first two seasons. 10 games started during Maye's rookie year. 12 games started during Maye's rookie year. 9 games started for Tyler Shough's rookie year. 225 out of 338 passing for Drake Maye. For Tyler Shough, 221 out of 337. So literally within 10 passing attempts of one another, actually 11 passing attempts of one another in this one. Drake Maye completed 66.6% of his passes. We saw Tyler Shough complete 67.6% of his passes. 2,276 passing yards for Maye, 2,384 for Tyler Shough, and in 16 passing touchdowns to 10 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions to 6 interceptions, and then Tyler Shough had the better passer rating of the two, 91.3, 88.1. So what we're looking at is not just how these two compared to one another during their rookie season, but looking at Drake Maye's successful rookie year, which looks a lot like Tyler Shough's, or really vice versa. Tyler Shough's rookie year looks a lot like Drake Maye's rookie year, since one happened before the other. The thing that you're looking at next is, okay, can you see Tyler Shough have that same sophomore leap, same sophomore jump that Drake Maye had, because Drake Maye started 17 games, improved to completing 72% of his passes, threw for over 4,300 yards, almost 4,400, and then threw 31 passing touchdowns to just 8 interceptions with a 113.5 pass rating, and of course was an MVP candidate, as well as now will quarterback against the Denver Broncos for the New England Patriots next weekend for the AFC Championship game, for an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. Now, the postseason stuff, MVP, getting to the conference championship game, playing for a Super Bowl, winning in the playoffs, all that, that's going to be more team stuff than that's going to be individual performance stuff. But if we take a look at some of the things that we saw from Drake Maye and then try to apply that to where things could go for Tyler Shough, it becomes very intriguing. I mean, we saw him throw 45.5% more passes in 2025, completed 5.4% more of his passes in that second year. And we saw a passing yardage increase of nearly 100%. He nearly doubled his passing yards from his rookie season into his second season. And then his touchdown percentage leapt by nearly 2% as well. So if we look at all of those things while trying to apply that to Tyler Shough, it gives you a really, really promising stat line, one in which he starts 17 games, completes 72% of his passes, throws 4,600 passing yards. Again, that's using the same percentage of increase in passing yardage from year 1 to year 2 for Drake Maye, which was 93% for year 1 to year 2 of Tyler Shough. So it put him over 4,600 yards. And then if you raise the touchdown percentage, I'm going to keep the interception percentage the same as it is, because Shough's interception percentage is already 1.8%. We saw Drake Maye's drop to 1.8% in 2025. So I'm just going to leave Tyler Shough's interception percentage where it was. And so in that case, he would jump to 24 passing touchdowns as well as 9 interceptions, and then finish, according to Pro Football Reference's passer rating calculator, using all of those stats, he would be sitting with a 112 passer rating. That's a really fantastic, like if I told you that Tyler Shough comes out of his second season completing 72% of his passes, throwing for 4,601 yards, 24 passing touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions. And that's before we even get into what he does with his legs as well, which of course is a big piece to all of this for New Orleans, or can be a big piece to all of this for New Orleans. And a 112 passer rating, I venture to guess you'd be pretty excited about that. You'd feel really good about it. And so the biggest thing is, obviously it's going to take a lot. It's not just, hey, you're going into your second year, so you're guaranteed to be this much better. But Tyler Shough's doing work with Drew Brees. He's getting throwing sessions together with his teammates. He had that stellar rookie season that looked a lot like Drake Maye's rookie season, although he didn't start as many games. And he's somebody that has a quarterback coach as a head coach, right? And he's got this great, support system of former quarterbacks, current quarterbacks on the Saints roster and on the Saints coaching staff. And so Tyler Shough could be in line to take a very similar leap that Drake Maye did from his rookie season to his second year, as Shough goes from his rookie season to his second year. When we look at Bo Nix, which is what we're going to get to next, it's going to be a little bit more about consistency, but showing up in the clutch, because that was one of the best things that Bo Nix did. And when you talk about rookie seasons, Tyler Shough, his rookie season looked a lot like Bo Nix's rookie season in that category as well. So let's get to that next as we continue to look at the sophomore jump that could be on the way for Saints quarterback Tyler Shough. Let's get to that as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at Ultimate QB Football Legend. Sound familiar? It's because it's brought to you by the same folks that brought us Ultimate GM, the fantastic mobile game. And just like that one, this one is available offline, 100% offline. It's free to play and has no ads as well. But with Ultimate QB, you're getting a little bit extra, because instead of managing a team, you're the quarterback drafted number 1 overall by, let's say, the New Orleans Saints, for instance, and you are going about signing contracts for yourself, training, improving yourself, working with your teammates, even consulting with the GM on who to bring in to try to get your team to the top all with some 2D gameplay as well, which Ultimate GM has added here for Ultimate QB. So go and check them out today. You can head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or just search Ultimate QB in your app store. Don't forget to use the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game store to get a free boost when you start your career. Ultimate QB, football legend, QB1. It's your legacy. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked in on all of the action and with every moment than with PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. PrizePicks makes watching the big game even more exciting by letting you build some lineups around player projections. There's no drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs and of course into the big game. It's incredibly easy to get started. You pick 2 or more players, choose more or less in their PrizePicks projections, and bang, you're already off and running. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your input, your selections there. One of my favorite features is early payouts. Gotta love that, and where if you have a player maybe that gets off to a hot start, you might get the chance to cash out early. So just go and download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, family. The New Orleans Saints, Tyler Shough could take a big step in his second year, even if he doesn't follow the Drake Maye path, by following the Bo Nix path, which is really about consistency and arriving in the clutch. This is major for the New Orleans Saints. If they get a great season out of Tyler Shough in his second year, of course, that ends up starting sort of the sky's the limit conversation around the team and for the team. And so if we look at just a benchmarking of consistency here, I want to take a look at what Pro Football Reference says about Tyler Shough's season if he were a 14-game starter, 17-game player, and that's just kind of taking things and kind of expanding it out in terms of where things were this year. And so just based on this year's metrics, he would have completed 67.6% of his passes, we know that, but could have thrown for 3,684 yards while throwing 15 passing touchdowns as well as 9 interceptions. So if you look at that stat line and think about that in terms of instead of 14 starts over 17 games, 17 starts over 17 games, you're probably looking at a 4,000-yard passer. You're probably looking at least 20 touchdowns thrown, and you're hovering around 10 interceptions in that case, and you're still looking at completing 67.6% of his passes. And so with all of that taken into consideration, that's a major opportunity to take that and bridge that level of production over to the next season. What Bo Nix did really well is that he just stayed consistent. When you look at his first year to his second year, it's mostly the same. Completed around over 63% of his passes, 66 his first year, 63 his second year, threw for 3,700 passing yards for 29 touchdowns his first year, threw for 39 passing yards for 25 passing touchdowns his second year, 12 interceptions to 11 interceptions, and basically very similar, passer rating within 6 points of one another from one year to the next. And so if you think about what it is that made Bo Nix successful his second season, it was the consistency keeping things going from his first season, where, by the way, they were also a playoff team, right? So, or at least playoff contending team. And so in all of that, you think about how Tyler Shough would have performed as a 17-game starter, which is not the same as saying, man, the Saints should have really started him week 1. No, because there's no guarantee. He even talked about this himself over on Teron Armstead's show, that if he starts week 1, things might not have gone as well, right? And things could have started off rocky, might not have been just ready yet, all that. And so what you're really trying to do is take the 9 starts and then transpose that over 17 starts in an imaginary land and say, okay, whatever that is, how do you copy and paste that into next season? But here's the thing that we can look at that's a little bit more concrete, right? So let's beg consistency as opposed to the Drake Maye leap for the sake of this conversation around the Bo Nix sophomore jump. And the next thing that we would be looking at is one of the things that Bo Nix did really well is that he played incredibly well in the clutch. He went from having 3 game-winning drives his rookie season, which, by the way, is the same number of game-winning drives that Tyler Shough had during his rookie season. And Bo Nix went from 3 to 7 in 2025. And so if you look at that and you do that same thing for Tyler Shough and you go from 3 of those games to 7 of those games, that's potentially 4 more wins that could have been lopped onto this year's record. And being a team that only won 6 games, if you flip 4 losses into 4 wins because of your ability to be able to finish late in games with Tyler Shough, all of a sudden you're a 10-win football team and you ran away with this division whose winner had only 8 wins and was a first-round bounce in the playoffs. And so I think that's the thing that you would be looking at when it comes to how you apply Bo Nix's kind of second-year leap or second-year jump, his sophomore jump, to Tyler Shough. You want to do that by looking at some of the situational things that he did incredibly well. The other thing that I think looked good too was that his sack percentage trended down. That's a big thing you'd like to see for Tyler Shough, whose sack percentage is 8.66%, which was one of the highest in the league. He was sacked nearly 3 times per game on average over the course of all of his games, over the course of his starts. And so I think that those are the other places where you'd like to see things get a little bit better. Now, that's not all on Tyler Shough, although some of it was Tyler Shough holding on to the football, not throwing it away, all those other things. But also, look, the offensive line left a lot to be desired throughout this season. And so in any case, that's not just a one-person problem. That's something that you need to get better all across. And that was something that the Saints acknowledged themselves with general manager Mickey Loomis, as well as head coach Kellen Moore during their end of season press conference, where they talked about getting better with the protection side of things and working on keeping Tyler Shough clean and all those other pieces. So if you take Tyler Shough's 17-game, estimation, and then you say, okay, maintain that consistent level over 4,000 yards passing, over 20 passing touchdowns, around 10 interceptions, a decent passer rating around 100, between 90 and 100, let's say in the 90s, and then a 67% completion percentage, but you add those game-winning drives at the end where we already know Tyler Shough has proven that he can be that kind of quarterback, and also add on top of that, or really take away from the sack percentage and make the sack percentage better and bring some of those sacks down, I think you could be, again, looking at a situation where you're pretty happy with the way that things could look for Tyler Shough, because you could potentially take him from the high 30s in sacks would be like the 16 game or 17 start estimate, and then bring that number down a bit and hover around the high 20s, which is where he hovers right now, having just appeared in 11 games with 9 starts. Then you add 4 potential wins on a game-winning basis as a game-winning drive, adding 4 game-winning drives, which gives you more wins. You're in a pretty good place in 2026 when you're going to be going against all these teams that are going to have brand new head coaches. You got a bunch of losing teams. You got a bunch of non-playoff teams and all that. It's a good place to be. So whether you're getting the Drake Maye leap or you're getting the Bo Nix bump, in either case, you're getting a really, really good set of production from Tyler Shough going into his second year. So Shough, of course, will carve his own path. Doesn't have to look like those guys, but if you get either one of those jumps in the second year out of Tyler Shough going into 2026, that's a playoff season for the New Orleans Saints. All right, coming up next, the path to the playoffs could be a little bit easier in the NFC South because of the mess of the division, but the Atlanta Falcons might have made it just a little bit more complicated with their head coaching hire. Let's get to that next as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the best place to go to get in on all of the action. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel's officially in playoff mode with championship weekend on the way. Of course, tonight you also have the national championship game between Indiana, 7.5-point favorites over Miami, So make sure you can get in on that as well. But every playoff game day throughout the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving users a profit boost pack that'll be waiting for you inside of the app. It's going to give you multiple profit boosts so that you can get more juice on the bets that you already like. Even every play will get to feel even bigger and bigger and bigger. And these boosts are going to give you the best feeling you're going to get. So make sure you go check them out. You can make all of your picks and you can apply your profit boost so you get an even larger payout while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel today, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints' biggest rival, the Atlanta Falcons, have now hired their head coach in Kevin Stefanski, and make no mistake about it, he's a good head coach. And he is a head coach that was the best available coach on the market at the time that the Falcons pulled the trigger on their hire, with John Harbaugh having already who was clear, like far and away the best available coach that was looking for a job. I know Mike Tomlin's also out there, but he's not coaching this year. But Harbaugh going to the Giants, and that left Stefanski as the best head coach available. And I think that the Falcons made a good hire here in Stefanski. I like Kevin Stefanski as a head coach. I just think the Cleveland Browns, if I'm being honest, absolutely wasted him. So I want to take a look at what the Kevin Stefanski hire could mean for New Orleans. I'll tell you a couple of reasons why I think Stefanski is a good head coach, and why he's going to be a challenge in this division. But I'm also going to tell you a little bit about what's already got me doubting him in Atlanta as well. Two things in particular that are very important. We appreciate you very much as always for being here, making us your first listen, being an everydayer. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club, where you can get these shows uninterrupted, no ads, $5 a month, $50 a year. Just click the link in the description. Head over to lockedonsaints.supercast.com for more information. So the Falcons have hired Kevin Stefanski, former Cleveland Browns head coach, as their head coach. I'm going to give you two reasons why I think Kevin Stefanski is actually a good coach. Here's the way that I'll phrase it. To me, Kevin Stefanski is a better head coach than the Cleveland Browns are an organization. And so because of that, I feel that the Cleveland Browns absolutely wasted what they had with Kevin Stefanski. I don't think that Kevin Stefanski is going to take off year one here in Atlanta, but the two reasons why he stands out to me is number one, he's a two-time coach of the year. That's not a lie. That's not something somebody made up somewhere. That's not a pity vote that he got or whatever. Those are two designations in 2020 as well as in 2023 that he absolutely earned. And so for me, that's a major piece to this puzzle. The other thing is that he's an offensive guy that has a track record for some offensive success when he is calling the plays. The issue is the last 2 years, he's turned over play calling duties partway through the season over on offense. And that's never been something that helps any team in any situation. And so him having Bijan Robinson and Drake London and some good weapons on offense. We'll see if Kyle Pitts returns or if he decides he wants to go elsewhere. We'll see what happens there. But in any case, that's a good offensive talent over in Atlanta. But here are the two things that have me doubting Kevin Stefanski right now. Kevin Stefanski was not hired by a general manager. Kevin Stefanski was not hired by, an owner that's done this 1,000 times, whatever. Kevin Stefanski was effectively hired by the team's former quarterback. And the Atlanta Falcons, playing the nostalgia game here, bringing Matt Ryan in, making him their, what do they call him, director of football or something like that. And that's, a job that they made for him, and they brought him back for nostalgia. And now he's coming from media to all of a sudden effectively be the guy that runs the team. Like, he will hire the general manager. The general manager will answer to him kind of situation. It's not him being the general manager. He's over that there. And so I don't like that structure. I also don't understand why you as a quarterback, and look, John Elway did this and he did it well in Denver and it worked out, but it doesn't often, nor does it always work out. If I'm a quarterback that is the best player in a franchise's history, there's no way I'm going back to that franchise at any point to tarnish my long-standing reputation by screwing up in another position or screwing up in another role that I've never done before. And Matt Ryan has now primed himself to do exactly that. And so the hire on the sort of like, hey, let's try to recapture the glory days thing. Maybe it's just because I just covered the, hey, let's try to hold on to the glory days thing here in New Orleans, and it failed spectacularly. I think I don't have a lot of faith in that, or I don't find a lot of promise coming from that, looking at that from any other organization for that matter. Number two, one of Kevin Stefanski's first things that he did was that he brought in Tommy Rees to be his offensive coordinator over from the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns were awful on offense with Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator and Kevin Stefanski as the head coach. If I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm trying to distance myself from the Cleveland coaching staff as much as I can, maybe with the exception of Bill Callahan, very proven and trusted, celebrated offensive line coach in the NFL. Outside of that, everything's new around me if I'm in that situation. But Kevin Stefanski's retreading most of his Cleveland coaching staff and bringing that to Atlanta, which that gives me a little bit of like, well, never mind. Maybe I was wrong. Not feeling those decisions. But on the field, I do think that Stefanski is a better head coach than he was ever going to be able to have success in an organization like Cleveland, which was terrible at asset management, sold its soul for the wrong quarterback, and in the process gave up on the wrong quarterback, and has since then just continuously reinvested in the wrong quarterbacks. I don't think you're going to see them do that over in Atlanta. So I expect Stefanski to at least make things tough in the NFC South. All right, family, time for a little bit of lanyard for the real ones that made it to this point in the episode. Expect this to be a potentially busy week for the New Orleans Saints. This is officially the end of the 10-day hiatus that the coaching staff went on, and now it is evaluation season for New Orleans. No, not that evaluation season when they're, out of the playoffs and all those other things. The evaluation season to where they start combing through, working with their coaching staff and evaluating all three levels, all three phases of the game, and figuring out where the improvements need to happen and if there are any changes that need to happen as well. I don't know if there's going to be any changes on the Saints coaching staff. No coaching staff member has seemed at this point to pick up any interest for any open coordinator or head coach opportunities. That's not a surprise. I think that starts next year, though, especially if Brandon Staley has another strong season as a defensive coordinator here in New Orleans. But if the Saints are going to make any changes on the offensive coaching staff, I would expect them to be related to the run game or special teams. Those would be the places where I could see some potential staff changes being looked at and decided that they're warranted. We'll see, though, if they go that route or if they decide to play the patience game for a second year and giving guys a second year to kind of get everything in the right place. But I think run game as well as special teams, if there are going to be any coaching staff changes or any big wide swath changes of that ilk, those would be the two places where I think you could make the argument. And of course, there's multiple names and multiple people that are all associated with those things. So not trying to pinpoint one person or another here, but just looking at those phases of the game as the places where I could see a potential change on the way. So expect some news around coaching staff changes, no coaching staff changes, what they've learned, what they haven't learned, all that stuff here throughout this week. And then, of course, Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama is the week after that, or next week. And so we'll get into a bunch of different updates while we're out there in Mobile and what we're hearing there as well. Pushing mock draft to midweek because I wanted to kind of cover these kind of bigger topics here to kick off the week. But just so you know, the mock draft is still weekly. Sometimes it'll be mock draft Monday, sometimes it'll be midweek mock draft, sometimes it'll be both. So let's have a blast here this offseason. Coming up in tomorrow's episode, some more free agents that the New Orleans Saints could be eyeing this offseason. We thank you very much, as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust to that nation, I'll holla at you.